Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to go over my top 5 tips that I think every single Zac player needs to know. Now, my goal behind this video is to make you a better League of Legends player, as well as to give you a better understanding of the champion as a whole. I put a timestamp at every single point of the video. If you want to look up at the top of the screen, you can skip this intro, and then there is also going to be a segmented scrolling bar on the bottom if you want to skip over to the next tip. If you want to contact me directly with any questions, I'd be happy to help you guys out. I am going to put in the pinned comments my Discord as well as my Twitch. Now, I'm a bit limited with this format, only being able to do 5 tips because I don't want this video to run too long and make it too wordy and bore you guys too much. So make sure to add your own tips down below. I know there are a lot of one-trick Zac players out there, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Maybe some interesting builds. I love seeing kind of like off-meta stuff. I really enjoy off-meta stuff, so make sure to comment those if you have any of them down below. And with all that out of the way, let's get into tip number 1. Alright, and getting into tip number 1, we are going to go straight into what separates the extremely good Zac players that are just carrying and destroying games from the just mediocre Zac players. Now, it is all about controlling vision. Zac is very similar from Fiddlesticks in the regards that you want to come from an unexpected angle that you have cleared with Oracle Lens and your control wards, which are pretty much worth their weight in gold, and coming from unique angles when playing Zac, jumping from extremely long distances. For example, if you're on the blue side and you're looking to gank, you are able to really just get very deep down the lane from different angles. So always make sure you're carrying those control wards around, and they will pay off. Also, similar to Rek'Sai, you want to look for unique ganking paths. With your overall mobility, with your slingshot, you are able to dodge a bit of vision that is going to be placed out, particularly in lower elos of Iron and Platinum. Iron to Platinum, they will look to place a ward here consistently when the team is looking to push up the wave here, and getting behind the target is just going to be a very great way to just start off this gank and get a very strong engage on the enemy from an unexpected angle. The more you play, the more you're going to start understanding how important vision control is. So always ask your team to get a bunch of control words, play off the control words that are placed, and using your Oracle Lens to the max is going to just enable this champion to a very insane degree, similar to what Assassins like doing with their overall vision control in different games. So always look for those unique, unexpected paths, and your Zac play will improve. And that will wrap up tip number 1. Alright, and getting into tip number 2, with Zac, we're going to go over a couple small micro things that can really improve your play, particularly for the newer players that have not put in too much time into Zac. The number 1 thing that I want to talk about with you is your second slingshot that is used in your team fights. This is after you have already engaged and you are in vision of the enemy. A very powerful tool is holding on to your E, encouraging the enemy to be dodging around, not running in a straight line the quickest way away from you as possible. This is going to allow your teammates to catch up to the current skirmish and chase down the enemy target, because it will be very unlikely that the enemy is just going to be running in a straight line at the same speed when you are charging up your E. So look to use this as a little bit of a zone, but you do not obviously want to hold it too long. So I encourage you to go into practice tools so you can get the exact timing down on how long you can hold your E. Another really small thing, if you're first picking up the champion, it does the same amount of damage if you snap cast your E as if you fully charge up your E. It isn't like a Varus Q, so you want to keep that in mind. And obviously, it is extremely hard to dodge when you are in melee range of a champion with just snapping an E on top of them. That is going to be a great way to make sure that you are landing that. So, next thing, how you can look to play out Zac in different team fights. If you are on a high priority target and you have a couple dive buddies, maybe you have a LeBlanc or a Kiana that's looking to dive in back on the assassins. If you are able to get on top of someone, you always want to make sure that you are positioning yourself in a way where you can knock them back to the most optimal area. Even if it requires your flash sometimes, in particular team fights, getting behind a target and using your airborne bounce to throw them backwards can be an invaluable tool. You don't really want to underestimate the power of displacing a target a couple of teamos back in a certain direction. So keep this in mind. If you have any questions about these, I'm more than happy to help you guys out in the comments down below. And now we'll wrap up tip number 2. All right, and getting into the next tip, let's talk about priorities in team fights. Now, this is something that is very important that I see a lot of lower elo people make this mistake. So let's say you get a pretty good engage, you go in on the targets, you use your full combo, you CC a good amount of people. You do not want to be looking to just smack people with 100, like 50 to 100 damage auto attacks. Always prioritize picking up your goo over your ability to get an extra 1 or 2 auto attacks off. This is going to just provide a lot more sustain. This is going to give you a lot more presence in the overall team fight, and it is going to deter people from focusing you. And if they do focus you, you are going to increase the amount of time your backline is going to have unhindered in these particular team fights. So your priority should always look to be get a really strong engage with your E, get your W, Q down, your R on high value targets, and then picking up your globs. If you have no globs, obviously you can go around smacking people with your goopy arms, but always look to pick up as many of your passive stacks and keep yourself as healthy as possible in team fights. And that will wrap up this tip for Zach. All right, and getting into tip number 4, let's go over a couple of small micro tips that are very unique to Zach and how you can add these to just your overall toolkit to make you a better player as a whole. The first one is just a flyby smite on objectives. This is great in games where maybe you're a bit behind and you do not have objective control. All you need is a ward in the pit. Obviously, you are not going to be able to smite the target if you do not have vision of it. So it's very simple. You just want to have your E over the edge of the pit, and you can throw out your smite as you are passing by. Now the timing gets super difficult, but it will at least give you a small percentage chance of stealing the Baron or the Dragon. Obviously you can do this on both sides when you are playing it. As you're going to see here, I can just get a smite really quickly on the Dragon when I am passing by. Just making it a little bit easier, obviously, with control wards and wards is going to be your friend. The next smaller thing you can look to utilize with Zac that's a little bit weird is you can proc your Q on anything you can auto attack. This means it doesn't have to be a minion or an enemy champion. You can proc your Q by using blast cones. You can proc your Q by using the different vision wards. You can proc your Q even by hitting a one of these honey fruits. So always keep this in mind. If you do not find a traditional target, there are a bunch of different things. And if you're very quick, or if you have your sweeper up, you can look for wards, Q, and then hit the ward that might be in a particular bush. This is going to really catch the enemy off guard, because a lot of people know how Zac's Q works and how he needs a secondary target to smack. And then obviously you can do it as well with towers. You can hit them with a Q and get the thing down. So make sure that you are utilizing the full amount of targets that you can look to use your proc Q knockup. And that will wrap up this tip for Zac. All right, and getting into our final tip with Zac, we're going to go over optimal team fighting and how you should look to play out the fights. Now, before any of this occurs, before you even get to an objective where you are looking to fight, maybe you're just walking back from base and looking at the overall game state and trying to find out where you are. You should be pressing tab and have a good understanding of who is strong, who is weak, and what your role needs to be to fully optimize your allied team's engagements, peels, and your enemy's capabilities. So these are going to be some really particular examples you need to be careful of. So if there is a crit marksman that has 3 items, that is going to be a huge power spike. When they have an IE and 2 zeal items, this is when they can carry team fights to a extreme degree. Now also things like Triforce power spikes are also things to consider. Maybe think like a Rabadon's death cap power spike. These are going to be signs that you need to focus these targets and deter them from their full potential. Now the next thing I want to talk about is what you need to do in the particular team fights. Are you looking to peel, or are you overall looking to engage? You want to look to engage on enemy team comps that have very immobile backlines. Things like maybe a Ashe in the backline and a Rise in the backline. This is when you want to look to just jump in with your E. But the last thing you want to do is overextend against a very mobile target and enemy team comp that is going to kite you out deal a lot of damage to your HP bar while your backline is not going to be able to fully engage on them. So sometimes it is more prudent, particularly when you have hyper carry ADCs on your team. You want to look to do a counter engage on Zac where you can really protect the amount of damage. Now you want to watch the team fights extremely closely to see who has more raw damage coming out of the teams. Usually it's more prudent to be a peel bot when you have more damage, because there's no reason for you to overextend and potentially get outplayed and really put your team in a bad spot than just being a bit of a goalkeeper and a bodyguard for your allied team just in the front line and not overextending. Now, a very cool thing that I really like about Zac's kit is how you can see with this build how big he can get. Now, do not be fooled by the size. The E radius that comes out is always going to be set at 300 units. However, when you are a very large Zac with a lot of HP, one utility that you bring is your ability to block skill shots, because your overall hitbox is a lot larger, as well as it's going to be very difficult for the enemy to click on a ally if you are right above them. So how you can look to utilize this is if they have a champion like maybe a Ezreal that is coming out of the enemy bot lane and he's looking to hit the priority targets with a bunch of Qs. Blocking those Qs with Zac can be an extremely good way to play out the different team fights. So always look to block skill shots in particular team comps and situations. If you have any questions about team fights, my absolute favorite part of the game, I'd love to help you out in the comments down below. That's going to wrap up my video, guys. If you have any questions for me, you can hit me up in the comments down below, or you can join the Discord, or you can follow me over on Twitch. As always, guys, take it easy.